Welcome, my friends, to a new episode of Frameworks. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about Bloom's taxonomy. Now, what is Bloom's taxonomy? Bloom's taxonomy is actually a framework that helps educators and teachers design lessons based on learning objectives. And this framework, was actually invented by a group of educators headed by Benjamin Bloom. And this is, how the framework got its name, Bloom's taxonomy. And it's actually, it divides learning into three main domains. The first one is the cognitive domain, which will be actually the focus of this episode. And this domain is the one that focuses on knowledge and thinking skills. Then the other domain is the affective domain. And this is the one that focuses on emotions and attitudes. And the third one is actually the psychomotor domain, which deals with physical skills and movement. Now, the focus of this episode will be the cognitive domain. And the cognitive domain has a set of levels, and to be exact, actually 6 levels. Which means for you as an English teacher, if you want to build a lesson that is based on Bloom's taxonomy, so your lesson plan will be divided into 7 stages. The first stage is, of course, leading, and we talked about leading in so many episodes in this playlist of frameworks. And as we said before, leading is for the sake of generating students' interest into the topic. And then we will have 6 more stages, and these 6 stages are the Bloom's taxonomy stages or levels. Now let's talk about these levels quickly. And level number 1 is remember. Level number 2 is understand. Level number 3 is apply. Level number 4 is analyze. Level number 5 is evaluate. And level number 6 is create. So 6 levels. The first 3, we call them the lot. L-O-T. And this is an abbreviation that stands for lower order thinking skills. And the last 3 are called the HOT, higher order thinking skills, right? So 6 main levels. 3 are for lower order thinking skills, and the last 3 is for higher order thinking skills. Okay, good. Now let's talk about level by level and how it can be used in a language lesson. Let's talk about the practical part that English teachers can actually use. Okay, so we said that we're done with leading. We talked about it so many times before. Now let's get to the first stage, which is remember. Now the remember stage is all about recalling vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, tendencies, you name it. And you run this stage whether students fully understand the rule or not. It doesn't matter. Okay? And what we can do in this stage is actually introduce the target language in terms of meaning, pronunciation, and form, the MPF, for example. So imagine that you are teaching a grammar lesson, let's say the present perfect. And let's choose a context for that. Let's say travel is your context, okay? Right. So you're teaching the present perfect simple in the context of travel. And you want to design activities that would cover the remember level of Bloom's taxonomy. And you want to cover 3 things: meaning, pronunciation, and form. And one thing you can use is self-directed discovery. So, for example, when it comes to teaching meaning, you can, as you see in this activity on the screen, you can have 4 present perfect sentences and 4 functions, and you ask your students to match. they match the sentence with the function. Like, let's read sentence number 1, for example. Let's have a look at it. So, for example, the first sentence says, I have visited the Eiffel Tower. Second one, she's never flown on a plane. And then students have options. A question asking about travel experience, a completed travel action at an unspecified time, an action repeated within an unfinished time period, and it goes like that, and then they match. Someone might say, Shadi, but wait a minute. They don't know the rule. What if they answered things incorrectly? Fair enough, you're going to give them feedback. And this will be your entrance to teaching. So there is no problem if they make mistakes. Now, this kind of question would focus on meaning. Now, what about form? You can give them actually some sentences that are jumbled. Words are jumbled. And they need to unscramble these sentences so that they become accurate. So they rearrange the words, okay, so they have accurate sentences in terms of structure, like this activity. Let's have a look here. So let's read sentence number 1. To never have been I Brazil. So students will read it, they try to unscramble it, so they say, I've never been to Brazil. And then once they finish these sentences, we can get them to take these sentences and put them in a substitution table where they can see the subject, the auxiliary verb, the past participle, the extra information, and Bob's your uncle. They know the form. And again, the same question. What if the students made mistake? No problem. You're going to give them feedback. You're going to help them. Then we come to the pronunciation part, and that's an easy part. You can get them, to repeat after you. I've traveled to London. I've traveled to London. And you get them to say of, the weak form. So you focus actually on the features of connected speech related to the present perfect. They repeat after you. All this comes under the remember level. And now, after the remember level is over, now let's move to the understand level. And the understand level gives an opportunity to students to show that they understood the language introduced to them in the remember level. And someone might say, Shadi, how can this happen in the actual classroom? It can happen through a wonderful activity like this one. Let's have a look at this activity together. And the activity says, you are reading pages from a fictional travel journal written by different travelers. Read the short excerpts, then answer the comprehension questions to show your understanding of how the present perfect is used. And then, my friends, we have, for example, these excerpts. We've got 3 here. First one, it says, I've visited 4 European countries so far this year. Italy was definitely my favorite. I haven't been to Spain yet, but I'm planning to go next month. And then you give the students questions like these. You have 5 questions here. Which journal entries include actions that are part of an unfinished time period? How can you tell? In which entry is the writer asking about life experience? What words signal that? Find one example in each entry where the present perfect is used. What's the meaning, function in each case? Now again, these questions will show you whether students understood what you did with them in the remember stage. So the remember stage first, followed by the understand stage. And after that, we follow this with the apply stage. And this is when you get your students to take the language they learned and you get them to use this language, for example, in a dialogue, in a natural context. And one of the ideas is to get one of them to be a travel journalist, interviewing a traveler, okay? And then you can also support them with questions, types of questions. They would ask, how many countries have you visited? Which country have you enjoyed the most, and that kind of stuff. Like for example, this activity here. And again, you have option A and option B. Option A, travel journalist. Option B, world traveler. And then of course the students will exchange the roles. And then we have here some prompts that would help your students, like, have you ever been to, how many times have you tried, what countries have you visited? And that would be a question at the apply level. So 3 levels now. The remember level, the understand level, the apply level. And these are the lower order thinking skills, or the lot. Now let's move to the higher order thinking skills. And these start by analyze. What happens at the analyzer stage? We get students to dig deeper, breaking down sentences to see how meaning is built, spotting patterns in pronunciation or comparing tenses, that kind of stuff. So again, back to the present perfect in the context of travel. And one lovely activity that you can do at the analyzer stage is this one. Let's have a look. And I can call it tense tracker. Why tense tracker? Because you will get your students to track tenses. And here you give them, as you see, a travel blog. You say, read the travel blog extract. And we have the travel blog here. I've traveled to over 15 countries in the past 5 years. And then you give them these 2 questions that will help them analyze. Highlight all the verbs in the present perfect and underline all verbs in the past simple. Use 2 different colors or symbols to clearly mark the difference. And again, this activity will get them to analyze, the text and see when the past simple is used, when the present perfect is used. And this is fantastic for having, analytical minds. And you can follow, this with some wonderful questions like, which tense is used to describe specific events with exact times? Give 2 examples. Which tense is used to summarize experiences over time? Why does the writer switch from present perfect to past simple halfway through the blog? So you can follow that also with analytical questions. Wonderful activity. Now moving from analyze to evaluate. And evaluate, as the name tells, it's about evaluating the target language. So simply you can give your students a text and you get them to evaluate it. Is there something incorrect? Where is it? Why do you think it's incorrect? Can you fix it? That sort of stuff. So look at this activity. Let's have a look at it together. And again, it's still the present perfect simple in the context of travel. And the activity is about read the travel blog draft. And then you can set the context saying to your students, you are a language consultant, you're working for a magazine, and this magazine receives a lot of blog posts. You have to review them before they're being published. Okay. And then you say, okay, look at this blog post. For example, I've gone to Italy last summer. Of course, the first one, there is a problem. There is an error in it. And then you get them to evaluate these passages and talk about the mistakes there and how they should be fixed. And you can give them questions like, identify all present perfect and past simple verbs. Are they used correctly? Are there any errors in tense choice? If yes, underline them. Explain why a tense may be inappropriate in a certain sentence. It goes like that. Questions like these will help students become able to evaluate the target language. And then we come to the top level, which is create. And from the name, it's about producing. It's about the language output. And simply, you can ask your students to do an activity like that. Let's have a look. And the activity is called Top 3 Destinations Our Travelers Have Loved. And you say to your students, choose or invent 3 destinations. These can be countries, cities, or regions you've visited or imagine visiting. And then you say, write a short entry for each destination. Use at least 2 present perfect sentences per entry. Include at least 1 sentence with ever, never, yet, already, or just. Optionally include past simple to give specific details. Lovely. So now students will create those entries using present perfect and other also tenses as well. Now, when you look at this, you will see that we covered 6 main levels of Bloom taxonomy. And we're talking here about the cognitive domain. And those 6 levels are remember, and after remember, understand, and after understand, apply. The lot, lower order thinking levels. And then we'll go to the hot level, the higher order thinking levels, starting with analyze, move into evaluate, and finally create. And of course, you have your leading at the very beginning, and Bob's your uncle. You have a whole grammar lesson based on Bloom's taxonomy. Right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this new episode of Frameworks. Thank you so much. Until we meet again, this was Shadi Abu Yusuf. Bye-bye.